Look, Jake, this is an extraordinary filing that was just released to the public. It's enormous. Like you said, it's roughly 170 pages, and it is full of redactions. We're not getting to see everything that the special counsel said, but what makes this so extraordinary is we're just a month out from the presidential election, and here the special counsel is really revealing the most comprehensive picture yet of its case against former President Trump and his alleged efforts to subvert the 2020 election. And this is not something that usually happens in the course of a criminal case. But what is extraordinary here, there are many things that are extraordinary, but back in July, the Supreme Court looked at this case and ruled that former President Trump does have some immunity from prosecution and tasked the trial judge with evaluating this case and determining which charges and which pieces of evidence survive the Supreme Court's decision. So a couple days ago, the special counsel, they submitted a roughly 200-page filing to the judge, laying out what they believe is its case even after the Supreme Court's ruling. So here we're getting some of that, though there are redactions. Now, former President Trump's lawyers, they have been fighting the release of this evidence, arguing that this is potentially prejudicial to the November race because, of course, this is the last chance that voters will have to see some of this evidence, some of which has never been seen before, and to really hear the story that Jack Smith and his prosecutors would have put before a jury, because, of course, this case is not going to trial anytime soon. And if former President Trump is reelected, his attorney general is expected to dismiss this case as well as the other federal case against Trump.
Put this in legal context for us. Obviously, the political context is obvious. We are just under 5 weeks until the presidential election, and we're going to hear from the Trump team that this is election interference. It's being dropped right before the election. But put it in the legal context for us.
Well, Jake, what Jack Smith is doing here is he's essentially laying out his trial case, but on paper rather than in a courtroom. Now, the reason he's doing this all stems back to the U.S. Supreme Court's immunity ruling, which came down on July 1st of this year. What Jack Smith is now arguing to the district judge, the trial judge, Judge Chutkan, is all the things that we've alleged against Donald Trump that are in the new indictment, the slimmer indictment that was returned a couple weeks ago. All of these were personal or political acts and not official acts. There's a quote in here from Jack Smith that I think sums up his approach very well. He says, quote, "The through line of Trump's efforts was deceit. The through line of these efforts was not doing his job as president. He was acting deceitfully." So Jack Smith here, this is his brief, and he's saying to Judge Chutkan, all the stuff that's in our new slimmed down indictment, it's all okay. None of it is entitled to immunity, and we should be able to proceed to trial on it.
How did this motion come about? It's important for folks to understand why it is that Jack Smith was, and he was given a green light by Judge Chutkan to file this and have it be released.
He certainly was. And there are a couple of unusual things about the way this happened, Jake. So first of all, ordinarily, when it comes time for motions, the defense goes first. The prosecution puts in its indictment. The defense says, here's what we object to in the indictment, and the prosecution responds. Here, Jack Smith said a few weeks ago, Judge Chutkan, we want to go first. And Judge Chutkan actually said, well, that's quite unusual, but she let them go first. And the effect of that now is we essentially have Jack Smith's case, at least on paper, at least the parts that have not been redacted, 30-some days before the election, whereas we might not otherwise have had it. Now, Donald Trump's team will respond to this. They will say essentially all the stuff that he is accused of doing was all part of his official job, including the Mike Pence conversations. And Jake, I should note, like you, I'm not all the way through this thing, but just to give a taste of what Paula and others are looking at, there is a list of conversations fairly early on in this brief. It's just a bullet point list, a page and more, of conversations that Donald Trump had with Mike Pence. And some of that, I believe, gives us new detail. For example, at one point, Donald Trump tells Mike Pence, according to Jack Smith, to treat it not as a loss, the election, not as a loss, just as an intermission. So we are going to see some more details about those key conversations.